Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar series brought to you by the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. And this week, it's one of those, Craig, it's National Disability Insurance Awareness Month, known as DIAM, Disability Insurance Awareness Month. I know nobody's too excited about this, but that's what May is. But, for us, it brings up the conversation to get a little bit into, just what the heck is disability insurance and why does it matter in terms of dealing with everything? Real quick, before we get into that, Think with a Drink is brought to you by the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. You can find us on the web at ariesfoundation.org. My name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the ARIES Foundation. I have been in financial services now for 24 years. I am an investment advisor. It means I act as a fiduciary whenever I'm giving guidance or advice to my clients. I want to bring my vice president, Craig, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the ARIES Foundation. I've been in financial services about 19 plus years now, and I specialize in working with families and individuals to help them find their financial goals.
And Craig will be chiming in as we go along through this. We do want to say, we call this Think with a Drink because we want this to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more casual, a little less intimidating for folks, right, Craig, in terms of dealing with all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough subject to talk about, and so a little bit of liquid courage helps.
And so for this week's episode, we are drinking Powder Day. This is from Sierra Nevada. It is a double dry hopped IPA. Try to say that 5 times fast. Double dry hopped IPA. We've been holding on to this one for a little while because this is a very limited release from our friends at Sierra Nevada. It's only January through March. But I figured we're clear. The snow isn't going to come back if I pop this thing. That was what I was worried about. But I figured it's safe enough to drink it now. It is, it's a dry hopped IPA, so it's going to kick up the ABV. It's like 7.7% on the ABV level. If we're talking about trying to pair foods with something that is extremely hoppy like this, very citrusy, there's a lot of body that goes with it. Think obviously as we go into the summer here, which is why we're bringing it up, grilled meats. Grilled meats go exceptionally well with dry hopped IPA, double dry hopped IPAs. Especially those that are grilled in sweet barbecue sauce. You get some of that, it offsets the caramelization, that goes on. Indian cuisines, certainly hot curry chicken type of thing. Pulled pork, right? When we talk about the barbecue and all of that. And then, some sharp cheeses like a sharp cheddar type of thing. No real desserts for this one, Craig, but, oh well.
So it goes well with health food is what you're saying.
Yeah. No, but it goes well with the summer with, if you're doing, having people over for the barbecue or pulled pork type of thing, let's see what we got. Oh, you get a lot. You get that full blast of hop right out of the gate, right with that. You're drinking the same thing, right? You've got this.
I do. I'm right here. Yes. Yeah. I'll see. You get there you go.
You can taste it all the way. Yeah. A little trouble with that pour, I take it. You can taste the hops all the way through. You get a full blast right when you open the can, and then certainly the flavor on the tongue. Okay. Let's get into this with disability insurance. What is disability insurance? This is our agenda. They call it morbidity, which is not mortality. And we'll discuss the difference there and what that actually means for folks and why this is so important. And then the different types of coverage that are available to you. before we get into that, if you ever have any questions, one of the things that Craig and I always try to talk to everybody about is some of these protection plans are offered through employer sponsored like group benefits, Craig, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they are accessible. Sometimes, they cost you depending on what's being offered. And sometimes they may not be relevant, right? So it's sort of this balancing act. Like, do I take this? Do I not take it? Or maybe I can get it better myself than what I can get through my employer.
Maybe.
It depends, right? And so if this question comes up for you, if it's something you've been thinking about, or like, I have no idea, does this mean anything to me, or my employer's offering it to me, should I take it? Shoot that QR code on the screen. It's going to open up a calendar for you. You can schedule a time with us. We're happy to go through it. We're happy to do an evaluation or a deeper dive into the benefits that are being offered to you, just to see if that makes sense for you. And how does that sort of work for your overall financial plan? Well, you can go the old-fashioned way. That's that link there at the bottom, but you can just shoot the QR code and that'll open it up for and do that. It's a little bit easier for those who might have the phone in their hand. Okay, let's get into this, Craig. Okay. All right. So what is disability? It literally is disability income protection, right? This is income protection. If something happens to you, that's going to pay for those things that you absolutely have to pay for. And we talk about that as those, when we break down savings for folks, we talk about the basic living expenses, those must pay things that have to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
That's your, mortgage or your rent, the utilities, food in the that's in the cupboard or in the fridge, right? Not eating out, the food that's in the house, right? Mm-hmm. We refer to those as basically MUG, right? So, mortgage or rent, utilities, groceries. These are things that are essential that have to get paid. You got to live someplace. You got to make sure that the heats are on, electricity, and that there's food around.
Mm-hmm.
This is what disability coverage is really all about. It's replacing those needs if you are unable to work or you cannot, get paid, basically.
Yeah, so it's income replacement. It's really what it is. You can't work. Where's the money come from?
Right. But we're not trying to replace all of your income.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to replace those basic living needs. You're trying to recover. You've been hurt or sick or injured or whatever what happened. You're not working. You're recuperating.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that drags people down in the recuperation process is the worry, the stress of like, I got bills to pay. How am I going to pay these bills?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where disability comes in to say, no, don't worry about it. You've got this protection that's now paying those bills, so you can focus on getting healthy again.
Right. I think, the other misnomer that comes in here is whenever people think about disability insurance, they think about permanent disability.
Yes.
And they don't see themselves being permanently disabled, so they don't think they need it.
Right.
And you may be disabled for 3 months, 6 months, a year. It could be sickness, could be an injury, it could be lots of different things that cause you to be unable to physically work for a certain period of time. It doesn't mean you're permanently disabled, but in that interim, unless you've got a year's worth or 2 years worth of salaries put in your savings account, where is the income going to come from?
Right. And that's really what sort of the focus there is. And this is the totally disabled, right, number mm-hmm. there. But even if it is, as Craig said, some form of partial disability, like how long could you go without a paycheck? And we know from our past experience and from the things that we've talked about and the things that we've done. What did you just give me? You gave me a stat today on this, right? You gave me some. So what was it?
60% of households in America are living paycheck to paycheck.
60%.
Right. So that's more than half.
More than half, 60% literally could not go 1 month.
Correct.
You could not, if something happened, huh?
Right. Probably couldn't go more than one paycheck to 2 weeks. Right.
Right. But you definitely couldn't go 1 month.
No.
Now, you might be in a different situation listening to us, but the whole idea here is we talk to people all the time about building up that emergency reserve account and trying to get at least, our industry always talks about having 3 to 6 months. Coming out of the pandemic, we talk to people about 6 to 8 weeks, basically like a month and a half, in terms of it.
Mhm.
But if you were hurt and unable to work, more than likely you are unable to go past that 1 month. You certainly probably won't get the middle bubble there. You probably wouldn't make 3 months for most people.
Well, without having to make major changes, right? Or you fall behind on your mortgage, you fall behind on your bills.
You're
Right.
getting into debt, right? We're using
Right.
a credit card in that situation. We're creating debt, which causes even further problems because depending on how long that injury pushes us out, now we can't make the debt payments.
Exactly. Right. So now that injury is putting you behind the 8 ball.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it is unfortunately much more common than people, as Craig said, think about, right? Because everybody thinks about, well, yeah, I'm permanently disabled or I'm laid up or I can't move or whatever the case may be. When the reality is, and that's why they call it morbidity, is that the reality is here that someone in their 20s is got a 25% chance of getting hurt for a period of time where they are not able to work on a regular basis for at least a period. It's like 6 or 9 months or something, I believe this is referring to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's it really take? I mean, you go skiing or you go jet skiing, water skiing or something like that, and you break both your legs. Well, there's 6
Or you
months.
just break one of them.
Yeah, there's 6 months, right?
You hurt a hip, throw out your shoulder.
Yeah, throw your back.
Your back, right? Spinal. That's the muscular and the exoskeleton is the number one reason. We're going to go into that in the next slide in terms of what the causes
Oh,
of
good.
disability
I
are.
want to get ahead of myself then.
Yeah.
I'll just drink until you get there.
So as you can see, the number one cause there, as I just said, musculoskeletal system, connective tissue. This is what is the number one reason for disability,
Mm-hmm.
right? Cancer, you see nervous system, generally it's not accidents, right? As Craig was alluding to there with the ski, it's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's other things. And, mental and nervous disorders and substance abuse is another reason that you have to take time out, that you can't work.
Well, especially we're seeing a huge uptick in mental issues coming out of COVID.
Right.
Mental health issues. And people don't realize that, they have made exceptions. Disability insurance does cover mental health issues for a certain period of time now. Probably not as long as it should, but
Right. I think it's like a 2-year period, something like that.
Depending on the carriers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So just understand that again, it's this thought pattern that exists that says, gee, like Craig said, disability only happens if I get into a car accident or I got hurt skiing or something like that. When the reality is it's much more likely to be because you either got sick or you literally were doing something around the house. Let's face it, we're idiots. We go up on ladders and, move a heavy object. So we're just as able to get disabled doing stuff around the house where we weren't really thinking about it as we are, running in, having a car accident or something.
Right. But illness is something that it's very difficult to prevent.
Yeah.
Right. So you really don't have a whole lot of control on that. I mean, not to hit the COVID button again, but how many people had long haul COVID and were out for a couple of months?
We have a friend who's been 2 years plus.
Really?
Yeah. She can't work at all.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No. She's done. She can't do anything.
From COVID.
From COVID. It's long-term COVID that just, piled on to other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's unable to go back to work.
Yeah. And so would she have thought 5 years ago that would be the issue? I mean,
no, not at all.
No, right?
No. And then the employer, there's a whole different, conversation there where the employer basically was like, we can't cover you anymore because of that. So all sorts of things. Yes, it's very hard to predict when illness might occur or happen. And cancer's on there as one of those, heart condition, anything like that. These are These are all issues that can occur that you're like, okay, I can recover, but I need time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing to say that you're not going to get paid during that time unless you have some sort of coverage.
Well, the other thing too is sometimes disability will cover you for partial. Like I can work so many hours, but I can't work full time yet.
Right.
So you get some coverage for the time that you can't work.
Yeah, and that's all depending on the policies and how you build it out and some of the thoughts that go along with that. But that is one of the factors that should always be considered. And we'll talk about that when we get into the policies and looking at that. So, how does listen, here's the thing. Bottom line. The only reason that someone should not consider having disability income protection is that if you get sick or injured and you cannot work, that your lifestyle would not change. That what you do on a day-to-day basis or the bills that you are paying isn't going to be affected by it. And the reality is for almost every single one of us, our lifestyle would change.
Right.
We need some kind of protection. Now, we'll talk about it in a second because the next couple of slides, we're going to go through the different types of policies and how they come. But the reality is, this is like the will thing. Just about everybody needs this.
If you go into a room and you ask a bunch of people, just tell me, what is your biggest asset? You'll get my house, my car, my 401k. What you don't hear them say is my income.
Yes,
your income is really your biggest asset because your earning potential. So it's really disability coverage, but it's really income protection. That's really what it is.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And looking at the different types of disability insurance. So basically they break into two different categories, and those categories break into two different categories. You have what we've listed on the screen there is group. That is employer paid. This is from your employer. And then you have individual, right? So this means you're paying for it. And then you have short-term, which usually, Craig, is anywhere from 0 to maybe a year, depending on the policy, depending on what's written. Usually it only covers you for 90 days, usually short-term. That's a typical like group sponsored, short-term policy because
months.
Yeah, and we'll go through the iterations of each of them and what they mean. And the reason there's an asterisk besides the one for individual short-term is because honestly, you can't really get individual short-term disability anymore. It doesn't really exist out there. You can try to find it with some of those carriers, Aflac and some of those type of things, but even those, it's like, well, okay, they might have it available, but it's difficult to find.
Well, because the claim rate will be very high on it. That's why.
Right. There's a lot that goes into that in terms of dealing with it. So short-term disability, like we said, the number one reason for using a short-term disability policy is pregnancy, right? Because it's like 90 days or in terms of it, and so I'm going to use that to offset whatever time I don't have. Most plans begin within 1 week, so it's 7 days. And the benefit period, like we said, is usually 90 days. There are some that go up until, 6 months. But for the most part, this is what a typical employer-sponsored group short-term disability policy looks like. We'll cover you after 7 days. You go on claim. We'll start paying you after 7 days, and we'll pay you for 90 days. Because what happens after that is 90 days is usually when the employer-sponsored long-term disability plan kicks in, right? It's employer paid, so it's free, right? There's no cost to you in that situation.
Right.
But the benefits that get paid out to you are taxable. So usually the way these policies get set up is we're going to pay you 60% of your income, after a 90-day waiting period, but that 60% is then taxable. So what you end up with is probably about 45% of your actual income.
Right. And I think, some of them have gotten wise to this and it'll be employer subsidized. So you're still paying a portion of the premium. to help avoid the tax burden.
That's where it can be, or very low cost to you, depending. You know, some do a lot, but typically though they don't. Typically it's the employer just says, we're paying for it, we're going to give it to you, here's your plan, and we're covering it.
Right. But as you just said, now you got to look at it as being less than 50%.
Right. You're not, yeah, it's probably 40 or 45% when you do it all out and pay the taxes on the income that you're getting from it.
Yeah. The other thing you got to remember too is you're not contributing to your retirement anymore either. So you may be losing a match as well.
Well, yeah, but you're worried about and it's generally not portable. Right. So that means portability for those. It just means that I can take it with me. If I leave the company, I can then take this policy and bring it with me. Almost, 98% of these policies are not portable. They don't allow you to take them with you. It's just once you leave the company, that's it. It ends. There's moving on. Individual. This is where you're paying for it. And this is really all about, age and health. There will be some times where they will put things in there, like if you had hurt your shoulder, hurt your back, we're not gonna cover you for that because it's susceptible to injury now. You got an old knee injury, that old I played football in the 90s or whatever, that type of thing. We won't cover you. But the benefits that get paid out are now tax-free. So when you design this and do this at 60 or 66% of your income, you're getting 66% of your income tax-free, which depending on what you were getting for take-home pay is going to be very close to what you netted out almost in your after-tax take-home pay.
Right.
In that situation. So there's almost like no effect, except like Craig said, though, you're not participating in the employer benefits anymore. You're not getting into the retirement plan or that stuff, but what you're getting is almost your take-home pay now so that you can continue to sort of live the lifestyle that you were living. And it's yours. It's portable. It goes with you. You leave the company, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the company. It's all yours. So you can take it with you. So a lot of times, as Craig said, what we'll look at is, well, it's great if the employer's giving me a portion of my income, but I know now it's only 40, 45%. I need that, 60, 65% to actually cover all of my expenses, cover my needs. So a lot of times what you can do is you can put in a policy that you will add on top. It's like a top off of the current policy that the employer paid that you're paying for. So very little money, very little dollars, but you build it with the ability, Craig, to add a conditional rider that says, if I leave my employer and I no longer have that coverage, I can now increase my benefit amount. So I have them covering all of my 60%. Instead of covering only 15 or 20% of my coverage, I can now cover all 60 or 65%.
Right. So the employer plan becomes your base policy, and then your individual plan basically covers the expenses that the employer plan didn't pay.
Exactly.
But it's portable. And so if you do decide to leave or start your own business or something along those lines, you can always increase the coverage up to what it would have been.
Without any insurability, without any medical questions, without anything. It just automatically kicks in at that point. And so this is a conversation for a lot of people that it gets missed all the time.
Right.
Most people don't take this into consideration at all because they're just like, oh yeah, my employer's paying for it. I'm okay. I'm covered. But then, yeah, when you leave, now you don't have anything. And like you said, if I'm going out on a business on my own, or I'm going to start my own consulting or my own gig or whatever, 2 years, you need 2 years of income before you can qualify. So you're going to go 2 years without any coverage. Guess what stops most businesses failing is the business owner getting hurt or sick and no longer can complete that business.
Because they are the business. So
exactly. It's a cycle that needs to be, so this is something for a lot of people that you may, it's one of those I don't even think about. The employer gave it to me. I got it in the handbook when I signed it, when I joined the company, and I never thought about it again. And that's why we say to everybody, that's why we're here. We're happy to have a conversation with you. Do a deeper dive into what you're getting as far as coverage is concerned. Not only the disability, but there's other things. There's life and there's other, benefits that might be available to you. Some of them might be worth it. Some of them are just might be like, forget about it. Don't even deal with it, because that's just but the high idea here is you've got to look at your situation and what makes sense for you.
Yeah, I mean, I just had this recently with a potential client I was working with. Guy goes to the gym every single day. You see he's jacked. I mean, he's huge, in great shape. He's probably in his mid-50s, and last thing you'd ever think would be disabled. But you just found out 3 weeks ago he's got cancer.
Right.
Right. And that's something, no matter how many times you go to the gym, you're not going to stop. So
right.
The issue too is, like you said, a lot of times I do talk with people, even if they do have it, they don't know what their benefit is.
Exactly.
Right?
That is the case.
You don't know if it's going to be adequate until now you need it. Well, now it's too late. You can't augment it. You can't change it. You can't add to it. Right. So it's better off just to have a 5-minute conversation about what you do have and just make sure it's adequate.
Right. And just figure it out. That's what I said. That QR code on the screen, just shoot that. It's going to open up the calendar. We're happy to have this conversation. We're happy to take a look at it. They're going to send you something. They're going to send you some sort of a benefit booklet or some sort of a thing that says, here's all the benefits that you're getting. We're happy to dissect it for you and go through that. It's part of what we do.
Huh? I think I've read more handbooks than I did college books when I was in college.
Yeah, suddenly it becomes the handbook design people, right?
Absolutely. Yep. This is where you look. This is where it is. Yep.
Yeah. So in keeping the Think with a Drink theme going, we have what's on tap, what's coming up. And next week, we're just going to have fun because we're going into the Labor Day weekend. So we decided we're going to do, barbecue, beers, and summer fare. Like you've heard us whenever we do the beers, we talk about pairing. So this is going to be about food pairings with, those the staples of summer fare, basically the foods that we're eating and what beers are going to pair well with them. Yes, we will sprinkle in some financial information along the way, but this is mainly going to be about beers and barbecue. And then on 6/1, because we're sort of keeping that going, because now everybody's putting the blinkers on and thinking about, I'm going on summer vacation because the 4th of July is coming up. How do you take the stress out of your summer vacation? So that's on 6/1. So, as we said, if you ever have any questions, visit the site. It's ariesfoundation.org. You can email us at info@ariesfoundation.org. But the best thing to do, like we talked about, if you have questions on any of this, or you've been working for the company for a couple of years and you never really thought about any of the benefits that they were either giving you or offering to you, and you want to take a dive into it, shoot the QR code. We're happy to do that with you and get a sense of, hey, this is what it means for you. And on that note, Craig, I'm going to say skål and have a great evening. You're just drinking. Look at you. You like that. You like that.
It's a good one. Yeah.
See?
No music to lead us out?
No music to lead us out. We're just going to say good night.
Okay. Good night.